Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
It's Jason Lord's birthday.
That it is.
He actually did the spotting for the Illinois network the other night.
Mm-hmm.
Kept telling him Kajana Carter had the ball. I worry. I worry about the people we put out there, don't you? I worry about it.
Oh, God.
What?
Nothing.
Saw the two of you in the hallway. Even you looked like you were tolerating him.
Oh, God. Couldn't have picked one day to be nice.
I am being nice. I got him a job.
You did.
Who got him the job?
You did. You got him to work.
Who put some extra coin in his pocket?
You. It was
yes.
You. Oh,
right?
geez.
I can't help. I mean, he came through the way I thought he would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Like, I got to ask you a question.
Then when they changed running backs, he said it was Mike Archie. I mean, I worry.
I got to ask a question. Who do you think is a bigger joke, Jason Lord or the Pac-12?
Oh, man, we could debate that for hours. There are a lot of pros and cons to both.
Nailed it.
The Pac-12, of course, is inviting Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
But we told you that last week, so it's not a new story.
It's official now.
All right? The key for Gonzaga is quite simple. My understanding is, right, and I haven't seen it disputed anywhere, but my understanding is Gonzaga is going to get a full share, even though they're not playing football, which then changes the economic dynamic for them.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the next school they are going to eye to round it out to get to 8 football members and 9 overall is UTEP.
Okay.
Texas El Paso is the one that they're eyeing right now.
And they're in Conference USA?
No, they're in Conference USA.
Okay.
They play in the Sun Bowl. Right. Yes, I have hiked the mountain to overlook the Sun Bowl because I did 2 games in the Sun Bowl basketball tournament years ago. Geez, how long ago?
I hate to break your news, Steve.
They're in the Mountain West.
It looks like they are joining the Mountain West. UTEP's joining the Mountain West, not the Pac-12.
Right.
Because they're both currently fighting for new people.
Right.
So it looks like UTEP will join the Mountain West rather than join the Big Ten or the Pac-12.
I'm sorry. I meant to say the Mountain West. Actually,
yeah,
I actually meant to say that. To be honest with you, that was my fault. That was just a misspeak.
That means they would now be at 8 football playing members and 7 full members. They need one more person as well.
It's the one. Okay, but I can tell you who the fight's over. Okay, so it was my fault on the Mountain West thing. I mean, I just misspoke.
Yeah. And they still each need one full more member.
Texas State is the key, which I brought up on the show with Dennis Dodd on last week. Okay,
it's tough to monitor because each conference has been fighting for new people, and they both still need another full member anyway. So it's like they're getting from the same conference.
And UTEP is a better fit anyway for the Mountain West to begin with.
Yeah.
I think that'll work out. They can actually get into rivalry games with New Mexico and so forth because they're, in a relative sense, they're close. But Texas State's going to be the one. I think Texas State's in its 12th or 13th season as a Division I school.
Yeah.
FBS. They're in Texas, and they're the ones that the two will fight over. And that's going to be the key there. Now, I know we got to get to Pete Rose here at some point, which we will. But the Big Ten is now altering its protocol on onside kicks.
And this news broke late yesterday, of course, following the Minnesota-Michigan debacle. So I will let you go for it.
Well, they're just going to put an extra official on each side when you kick off, which should have been the protocol anyway. But they haven't stated, this is their loose way of saying maybe it wasn't quite right. But again, they will tell you there's helmets in the neutral zone. It's a kickoff. Okay? It's all about, to me, it's a kickoff. It's all about your feet. Where are your feet? Okay? People lean forward when they're running. Okay? This is, again, you are not in a standstill position on a kickoff when when the ball is kicked. Okay? People are running. last I checked, the vast majority of the world slightly leans when they're running. Right? And I've always and I told Bill Carollo 10 years ago when we talked about this with Jesse James. I said, "Geez," I said, "Bill, he's 6'6". I mean, I said he's supposed to monitor how far back he is. He's looking at the line."
Yeah.
He goes, "No, I understand." He says, but the rule is the plane. I said, "I understand what the rule is." So we weren't arguing; we were discussing. Because Bill and I always, anytime we've always talked, we've always discussed. We've never argued. I'm usually asking him, "Hey, can you help me here?" And that's what I did. I said, "Can you help me with this?" But it's got to be the feet on a kickoff. It's got to be the feet.
Yeah.
Because that's first of all, it's the easiest part to monitor. It's the easiest part to monitor, right? Instead of trying to judge a line in a guy's helmet, like, no, you can't do that. You can't make the call in that spot like that. If his feet are behind the line, you can't justify it.
It is.
Okay? That is such. That's like. That is such a subjective call about a guy's helmet being over. And I explained it, and believe me, the way I explained it yesterday is exact. I think, again, because I've talked to the league already about this rule 10 years ago. It hasn't changed. And I just think it's there's certain rules that are just BS rules, just like a three-point shot. In a three-point shot, you can shoot it.
While leaning.
Right? And land inside the three-point line. You can land there.
Yeah.
Right? It matters where you take off from. Okay? It's about your feet. It's the same thing with this. This is not a line of scrimmage play where they're lined up on the line of scrimmage. They're taking a 5-yard running start. People lean when they run.
What? I didn't know that.
Ridiculous. But so we're going to change the protocol. Now the Big Ten SEC.
I wanted to ask about this. So they're discussing a possible partnership in football scheduling along with their preferences for automatic bids, the next iteration of the college football playoff.
It's the last part.
That's the one that matters.
Okay, it's the last part.
AKA they each want 4 automatics.
Right. And that's what they're looking for here.
And will that happen?
Yes. You want to know why?
Why?
They control it. Okay?
Yeah.
How many millions of people watched Alabama, Georgia? And we know that there's no doubt that Alabama, Georgia had more viewers than Penn State, Illinois, but Penn State, Illinois still had a ton of viewers. Well, guess what? And then we've got next Saturday where the doubleheader is Penn State at USC and Ohio State at Oregon. OG. I wonder how the Big Ten's going to do that day.
Yeah.
Right? They control the audience. When you have, okay, so this is based on 2016 to 2023. 50% of the viewership is by 18 schools. 50%.
Yeah.
Well, 15 of the 18 are SEC and Big Ten schools.
And then you have Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida State.
Those are the 3. That's it. Okay? So you have already that type of power in the room that the success of the college football playoff moving forward is going to be around the brand names of these two conferences.
We want to see Alabama, Georgia every week, and we're going to get that pretty much when the playoff happens. We're going to get Bama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas.
Well, I think you're going to get, for example, it's just I know they're moving to the Pac. Well, they actually Pac-12 is going to be a group of 5. But the old day, like, let's see how Boise State plays. Let's see how UCF plays.
Of course,
all right, you've got that. I mean, nobody was excited about Liberty, Oregon last year. Everybody thought Oregon would blow them out, and they exploded them.
We'd love to see a Boise State get in there and all these teams, but at the same time, people still do want to see Alabama and Georgia fight it out because, my God, is that a good game? People want to see Penn State, Ohio State. People want to see Michigan versus Oklahoma. Like, these are the schools they want to see, and it's going to give it to them.
I mean, let's start with this. On the scheduling part of it, remember, That's loose because the SEC has 8 conference games. The Big Ten has 9.
And
the SEC has pushed back on 9 to this point. But the coaches have changed in the conference. That is not Nick Saban in the room anymore.
Yeah.
That's not, it's not Les Miles in the room anymore. There's been a lot of turnover in coaches, okay? The Florida coaching staff has turned over. Now Kirby Smart's still there, right? But Hugh Freeze is back in the conference. Lane Kiffin's entered the conference.
Kalen DeBoer.
You now have Texas. Okay, we don't know how Texas feels about this, or Oklahoma. So because of the changeover, we don't know if there's a different feel about 9 conference games versus 8.
And per Heather Dinich's story on ESPN, the future scheduling partnership would hinge on this. Some Big Ten athletic directors could push back on any agreement if the SEC doesn't move to 9 games because the Big Ten already does play 9 games.
Right.
One source to her said, if we're all going to figure this out, we've got to be on equal footing.
Right, and that's exactly
we
right.
have to be both at 9.
And that's exactly right. Now, when the college football playoff goes in 2026 to the new contract, and they're talking about maybe going to 14, they want 4 automatic bids for each conference. Well, guess what? You've got the power to ask that. Not to ask it. You have the power to demand it. You have the power to demand it. Because guess what? If you do an alternate playoff between just the Big Ten and the SEC, who's going to get the ratings? I mean, who? I mean, what's left is going to outrate
Yeah.
Alabama playing Penn State, Georgia playing Ohio State, excuse me, versus Clemson against UTEP.
Yeah.
I mean, look, like I said about the Big 12. Remember what I said about the Big 12? A+ for survival, C+
For
membership.
for future positivity.
No, their current membership is, right? I mean, they did the best they could. You're telling me that Utah, Arizona State, Colorado is a home run compared to Texas and Oklahoma?
Yeah.
No. You get an A+ for survival. You get a C+ for membership. Your membership dropped down. All right? Pac-12, they get an A+ for survival. They get a C- for membership. I mean, C-.
Yeah.
Right? You lose USC, Oregon, Washington, and UCLA, you are not better. But at least you still have a heartbeat.
You still exist.
Right? You have a heartbeat. You're fine. You're not a Power 5 conference any longer. In the ACC, right? I'm not going to give it a grade for survival, but their membership dropped down. They're now a C+ for membership as well.
It's diluted.
Stanford and Cal and SMU don't help, right? And you already have problems with membership anyway,
Yeah.
right? You already have problems. And, I mean, the Big Ten and the SEC have all of that. So they want 4 automatic bids for each conference.
Yeah.
Fine. Because guess what? Those are the people want to see. They want to see these people.
Yeah. And when you are a Boise State and you do get in, all of a sudden you're going to make more money on the back end purely because of just the spectacle and the money that's going to be poured into this.
That's right.
It'll end up making them more money.
Yep.
And it's just part of what it is. And hypothetically, you could see a year where, let's say, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State schedules don't completely line up, and they each end up with 1 loss. Those are going to be 4 of the best teams anyway. So they're going to get in anyway. May as well just give them the automatic bids.
Now, especially if this thing goes to 16, even
half
more
of them
so.
are gone. Yeah.
But if you go to 14 and it's 8 Big Ten, 8 Big, and that, but those are automatics. It doesn't mean there can't be somebody else that gets an at-large.
Exactly. You could have a 5th team get in
because 8, okay, plus 3, okay. Now you're at 11. There's still 3 at-large bids. Notre Dame could be 1. There's still 2 at-large bids.
Yeah.
They could both go to an SEC or Big Ten team. Right? Simple.
Yeah.
Okay? You've got the brand names. you've got the power schools. You have the power.
Yeah.
All right. The complicated legacy of Pete Rose.
So yesterday we discussed in the show Dikembe Mutombo passed away, and then later in the day it was announced Pete Rose passed away at the age of 83.
Yeah.
A spokesperson for Clark County, Nevada, confirmed on behalf of the medical examiner that Rose passed away on Monday. So there's now an investigation into his cause of death, but we're not going to talk about that. Him and his legacy as well.
Okay, look. Pete Rose is a Cincinnati kid.
Mm-hmm.
All he wanted to do growing up was play baseball.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing he could do in the minors is that he could hit for average.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He could never hit for power. But he played hard. I mean, if you want to show little kids how to play a sport,
mm-hmm.
especially if you're not the most talented guy out there, you show them a reel of Pete Rose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, running the bases. Now, Mickey Mantle gave him the nickname of Charlie Hustle. It was not a compliment because he was sprinting the first base, and I think the veterans were like, what's he doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, on a walk, he'd sprint the first base.
Yeah.
But he always played hard. Now, here's the next part that is very underrated about him.
Mm-hmm.
He was always willing to do whatever the team needed to succeed. He came up as a second baseman. He was the National League Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
But then they needed help at third. You know, they needed help in the outfield, so he played left field. They needed help in right field. He started there. He was an all-star at second, an all-star in left, an all-star in right, and then it was the 76 season? I think it was the 76 season. He moved to third base because they needed somebody to play third base. In fact, he volunteered. What happened is that to get George Foster's, it was 75, to get George Foster's bat in the lineup in left field, Rose volunteered to move to third, which then made the Reds' lineup more formidable. He then closed out his career by moving over to first base, where he, of course, for 4 years was with the Phillies, including a world championship in 1980. The people will say, you know, I think at one point he said he played in more winning games than anybody else. Well, you started playing in more winning games when Johnny Bench was called up. Oh, and by the way, they traded for Joe Morgan.
Not bad.
Okay, just to let you know.
Not a bad duo.
In other words, he contributed a lot, but he's not the centerpiece of what's going on here.
You had two similar Hall of Fame
to go with Tony
players.
Perez and and so forth. And then when he went to the Phillies, in a lot of ways, I mean, that was a talented team. They had Steve Carlton, they had Mike Schmidt, they had Greg Luzinski. I mean, they had some really terrific players. They beat the Royals in the World Series. And Rose, in a lot of ways, as a leader, helped will them, because at this point Rose is 40 years old.
So he joined them at 38. He left them when he was 42.
Yeah, he was 40 years old when they won the World Series in 1980, and he made the great play where the ball went off Bob Boone's glove in foul territory, and Rose was just right there, and he caught it. And it was like one of those in that World Series. That was one of the signature moments of that World Series. Then he went to Montreal. Then, of course, he gets back to Cincinnati. Now this is where it becomes complicated. Rose was always somebody that loved the action of the racetrack. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
All right? Legal, no problem. I mean, right? None. But he got caught. And he got caught betting on baseball. They've got the sheets, everything that goes with it. They had so much evidence. I mean, the Dowd report, John Dowd. And you will have... See, this is where it gets complicated, because a lot of this stuff, it was him as a manager. But remember, there was a season where he was the player manager. And this is why I think he's banned from getting into the Hall of Fame, because I don't know if it warped over into the player manager part. You will have those out there that will say, but he bet on his team to win.
You just can't bet in general.
You can't bet in general, but it's more to it than that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. I have now pitched you out of the bullpen 3 straight days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You need to have today off.
Mm-hmm.
Because what do managers need to do? They need to manage the situation, the game, and the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All rolled into one.
Mm-hmm.
So I pitched you 3 straight days. In fact, you may have gone maybe more than an inning in one of those.
Yeah.
You have to have today off.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I have money on today's game.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to pitch. Suddenly, 2 weeks later, Kyle has some arm soreness because of mismanagement of
my arm,
the game and the situation and the season by the manager, because the manager had a, beyond winning, which is a personal interest, a financial interest in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, as a manager, I mean, he got caught.
Mm-hmm.
He got caught.
Yeah.
And then for a minimum of 10 years, a minimum, if not more, it had to be more, lied over and over again. Nope. Well, yeah, maybe I did.
Mm-hmm.
And the gray area is the player-manager part.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We know he was betting as a manager.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that warped over into the player-manager part.
We're unsure at the moment.
If I had that answer, I could give a more definitive. Well, maybe you can put him in as a player, but you can't put him, but you can't put him in as. But you can't put him in because he soiled the game in the end.
Mm-hmm.
What he did was wrong.
Yeah.
All right. And don't ever sit there and be the person at the tailgate that says, but he bet on his team to win. Excuse me.
He bet.
You make so many bad decisions when your money is on the line.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, who knows what this is? Instead of like managing the game, managing the team, managing the season, now I got to win now. I've got X amount of money on the game. I'm going to lose money if I. No. Okay? You played 30 days in a row in the field. It's been 100 each day during the course of the summer. You need to get a day off. I put money on today's game. You got to play today.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Or I'm going to have you out of the lineup today. I have no money in the game.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is why you can't. If you're directly involved, you can't do it. I tell my students all the time, you can do whatever you want with your money. My advice is don't ever place a wager in a game you are covering.
No.
Because it completely skews your thought process.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with this. It skews your thought process.
Yeah.
All right. There was one point in his life he was an underrated player. There was another point in his life because of the lack of power, he was an overrated player. He probably ended as an underrated guy in some ways, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. And he thinks that he thought by passing away, he did say this, he said, I'll probably get in the Hall after I pass away. He's not getting in the Hall. Now, I would have allowed him to be on the ballot.
Yeah. To see what the waters look like. We've seen it, of course, with the likes of A-Rod and Bonds and everyone else. We're seeing it.
Right.
Like, they're not like Schilling or Clemens. Like, these guys like aren't getting in because you're giving the vote to the populace.
To me, that's the one part. I would have let him be on the ballot.
Yeah.
Right.
Let the voters decide.
And let them decide. And it is, again, it's a complicated legacy with somebody with 4,256 hits, more than anybody else in the history of the game.
I was going to say, and
3 world championships, never hit for power.
Nope.
Never.
Is it fair to say there's no one's ever going to touch his hits number? 24 years he played baseball. The closest current day player in terms of who is playing right now is 34-year-old Freddie Freeman, who is 2,000 hits behind him.
No, I mean, nobody's going to, because I just don't think people play enough games.
They don't play enough.
Okay.
And
people go, what about Ohtani and Judge? They're both older players.
And
okay? Judge is 32 years old. He's going to be 33. He doesn't have that. Judge has 5 more productive years left in him. Okay, that's it. Ohtani, I don't know what he's got. I mean, Ohtani's not a young guy.
No.
Okay? It's like when Ichiro came in. Ichiro could hit, but he didn't get to the major leagues until he was an older player.
To get it.
All right? They're just, and you don't have people playing enough games these days to do it.
Even Trout, injuries. Like, he just hasn't been healthy enough to be able to get there.
And not only that, do you want people playing 162? For example, there was a lot of conversation down the stretch about Jarren Duran, who does not want to get out of the lineup. He doesn't want to be out of the lineup.
No.
But they felt that maybe in September he slumped a little bit because he was tired. Well, Judge did the same thing this year that he did when he hit 62 home runs a couple of years ago. He faded in September because it's one of the few years he played all the time. Right? He doesn't have great endurance. All right? He just doesn't, right? And a long season, it was a hot summer, and it can wear you down. And now the playoffs are starting, and when the leaves fall, so does his average. So what?
Well, I know, geez. When it comes to the other players who have played in the past decade-ish.
That was a good one.
I
thought that was a good one.
It was good. The other players who've played in the past decade who have gotten at least a little close to him. You have Jeter at 34.65, who's, 800 behind?
Yeah.
Pujols is 10th at 33.84. You've got the likes of Miguel Cabrera and Adrian Beltre in the top 20. But outside of that, there is no player.
These guys played forever.
Yeah. There is no player in the top 1,000 who is under the age of 30. Who is currently playing today at 1240.
DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak will not be broken, in my opinion, at least in my lifetime. Rose's record will not be broken in my lifetime.
I don't think Wilt Chamberlain's record's going to be broken.
Wilt Chamberlain, no.
Like 100, it's just some things that are
100 points in a game, 50 points per game in a season. That will never be approached.
There are some things that just take so much.
Well, Bronny James may do it.
Yeah. Another one.
In that sport, LeBron James is now the all-time leading scorer. The difference is LeBron James started at 18.
Yeah.
Right? You can still get guys starting at 19 and having long careers where some of those records can be broken. Not the 100-point game, not the 50 points per game. Okay, that's not going to happen. In the NHL, I don't think Wayne Gretzky's 212 points is going to be broken. I mean, there's just certain things that I just don't think are going to happen.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't think Mariano Rivera's save record is going to get touched. I think it would take. He was so dominant for so long, and even at the end of his career, he was still good enough. The closest guys right now to him, you've got Kenley Jansen and Craig Kimbrell, 4th and 5th. At 440 apiece.
Yeah.
They're 200 behind him.
Right.
Like that is right.
Well,
absurd.
And plus, to Rivera's credit, he played in an era where the Yankees played a ton of winning baseball, so he was in a lot of those situations.
You've got to play on a winning team for a long enough time.
But early in his career, he was the setup guy to John Wetland. So it balances out. So you got Detroit and Houston today, 2:30 on ABC, Game 1. Tariq Skubal on the mound for Detroit, and Framber Valdez is going to go for Houston. Interesting, A.J. Hinch gets to manage that. On ESPN2, the Royals, who go from 100 losses to the playoffs.
Crazy.
No, let's give them credit. Face the Orioles. Now, the Orioles last year had the unfortunate playoff opponent last year because they hit the Texas Rangers when they got hot and they swept them. So Cole Reagans will be on the mound for Kansas City today, and the big Baltimore off-season pitching acquisition, Corbin Burns, is going to be on the mound for the Orioles at Camden Yards. The Mets won the first game of the doubleheader yesterday and got in.
And can we discuss that game for a very fast second before we get to these last two playoff games today?
Mm-hmm.
The Braves led 3-0. Then the Mets got 6 runs in the top of the 8th.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there, I'm seeing it happen on social media. I'm live on my show. I'm just watching it like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. The Mets are going to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Braves make it a 7-6 game because then they score 4.
Right.
And it's like, oh my God, the Mets'd it. They blew it. They're out of this now. They have one game later today, but they're out of it. And then Lindor comes up and it's a 2-run home run and wins the game.
Right.
And it's like, what a ridiculous hour of baseball.
Right. And then the Braves took the nightcap, and that knocked the Diamondbacks out and put them in.
Yep.
So the Mets will send Luis Severino to the mound, and Freddie Peralta will go for the Brewers. That will be out at, well, it was called Miller Park. Who knows what it is? Probably the Bank of the Month place now. And then the Braves, after that doubleheader, had to go to the coast. They go to Petco, and they're going to take on San Diego. And the Padres were the hottest team down the stretch. The Braves have not decided yet on a pitcher for obvious reasons. They just played last night.
Yeah. And apparently Sale is unlikely to start.
Right. And
he was scratched.
Right. And Michael King is going to start for the Padres. And King pitched very well the last 2 months of the season. I watched his last start against the Dodgers where they got to him in the first inning and then he settled down. They won the game that night. That was the night they clinched. They won 4-2, pulled the triple play at the end to win. So all those games, you could tell that the ESPN has, is interested in this round because they're carrying the games.
Yeah, ABC, ESPN2, ESPN.
Yep. So
a lot of baseball on ESPN today.
No,
or the worldwide leader of sports' networks.
That's fine. That's good for the sport to get it out there.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens in this round because, like Detroit, one of the hottest teams in baseball, they absolutely dominated the back half of the season. Tarek Skubal's the Cy Young, soon to be Cy Young winner.
Sometimes, though, hot down the stretch
only does you so much.
Okay, everything comes down to like
matchups
today.
Yeah,
right? You may be hot as heck, and Framber Valdez is hotter today. Okay, or you may continue. It doesn't. There's usually not a lot of correlation between between the last month of the season and this playoff run. Was it best 2 out of 3 or something like that?
I believe so.
Yeah, so there you are. To me, that's the part that's interesting is that over the years, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and for the Tigers and Astros, their first game is today at 2:30 on ABC. Game 2 for them is tomorrow, 2:30 ABC, and if they need a third game, it is then going to be Thursday, same time, 2:30. All the games are pretty much the same time across the board.
Yeah.
Royals, Orioles is 4, and then 4:30 because they're going to switch to ESPN for Game 2. Yeah. And if they need Game 3, it's 4 p.m. ESPN as well.
Right.
The Mets-Brewers moves to a nightcap on Wednesday at 7:30, and then if they need the Thursday game, it's going to be 7 o'clock. The Braves and Padres will stick to 8:30 all 3 days as well. So that's going to be fun. And then pretty much regardless of what happens, all the second round, the ALDSs, NLDSs will all start on Saturday, October 5th, will be the first game for those series across the board, which will be pretty fun to watch, I believe, in terms of who's got what. The Guardians are going to be on TBS, so with the Yankees, and then the Phillies and the Dodgers will be on Fox FS1 combination.
Yeah, they were going to. Yeah. Fox is going for the ratings, so the Yankees are on TBS.
Of course.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
That is a soap opera. No offense, they don't make the World Series. I mean for example, it's huge for the Kansas City Royals to get into the playoffs. Now, okay, it's the gravy train. Right? Yeah. Right? The goal is to win. And they put themselves in a position to win. And that's great. Well, guess what? The Yankees have to get to the World Series. They haven't been there in 15 years. There was a period of time where the Yankees were like, well, it's when CBS bought them and Michael Burke.
Mm-hmm.
And there was that long, prolonged slump. Oh, wait a minute.
Mm.
Oh, wait a minute. It was 65 to 75 is 10 years. 11 seasons. Okay.
Well, speaking...
Then the next one was, what was the other one? The Yankees were in the World Series in 81. They got back in 96. So that was 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this equals the longest.
Mm-hmm.
They don't win. They don't get there this time.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be the longest the Yankees have gone without getting in since the from 1901 to 1921.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you a question? Because this is something I saw on from someone talking about the Mets broadcasters, and this is something interesting to me. Was I know we have the national broadcaster playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
None of the local guys, TV-wise, I don't believe, get on these games.
No, they do not.
Which, understandable because it's a national broadcast, but simultaneously, I wish there was a way to get them on to some extent, because a lot of these guys on these local, everyone loves the Mets broadcast. They're like a top tier one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering what your feelings are. I know baseball is very broadcaster specific, especially for baseball. It is it's the one sport where there might be a way to work it somehow. I don't know.
Well, baseball, let's see. Let's handle this a couple ways.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL doesn't have this issue because local broadcasters can do it, but they're all radio. They don't do locally, except for the preseason, locally produced TV. Everything's nationally televised. I think it would have been as great as Mike Breen is. And Mike Breen is, he's a platinum standard. All right. Celtics fans probably would have had a good time in Mike Gorman's last season to hear Mike call the championship at the end. Right? Just only because it's their local guy. They still had Sean Grandy on radio. Chuck Cooperstein, who's one of the great dudes out there, does the Mavericks games. So that part, right, the local radio part's still there, but and I don't know who the local TV person is for Dallas. The NHL, they're allowed to do the first round on local TV, but then after that, it's all the national guys. I can understand why, because they're the ones paying the big money for it. They bid for it. They got it. They have the right to put their own people on. But that means, unless they shift over and do some radio, Gary Cohen is not calling playoff games. I don't know. Gary Cohen's one of the great guys out there, and all my interactions with Gary have been with Seton Hall basketball. He's top shelf. He, Hernandez, Darling are incredible. Now, Darling will do the playoffs. I think he's on the TBS group. So he'll do the playoffs on TBS. And he's excellent. You don't get Michael Kay for the Yankees. You don't get Don Orsillo for the Padres. There's some really, really not good, great TV announcers. Now, the Brewers, Brian Anderson, does the Brewers. So he'll be on TBS. Now, I don't think he's doing the Brewers games if they get there. But he does that. The Orioles, Kevin Brown is great. But he gets shelved here. Right? Off the top of my head, I don't know the Royals. TV guys. Who else? Oh, the Dodgers. You get Joe Davis because he's the voice of Fox with John Smoltz. So the Dodgers guys in. Todd Callis. Todd, in fact, did the Penn State Texas A&M game on radio. He filled in because the Texas A&M guys were doing football. Right, so I saw Todd down in Orlando and talked to him for a little bit, and we've had him on the show before. But he's out for Houston, unless they do a few innings on radio. okay, which is very possible.
Yeah.
That they'll do a few innings. And that's the hard part of it. You get used to like one voice all season long doing your team's games, and now you get to this point and a person that maybe is beloved, trusted, enjoyed by the local fan base, they're out of it.
You know who?
But again, you got to remember who's paying the freight. And obviously Tommy McCarthy, who's awesome. I think McCarthy does a few innings on radio with Scott Fransky. I think that's how they keep him involved.
Yeah. And I don't think we've brought up Benetti for the Tigers.
Benetti,
he's got other things.
But Benetti could also do. I don't know what they're doing. What Fox is doing. Where Benetti, I don't know if he's doing some Fox baseball games or not. But at the same time, some of these guys do get shifted over for a few innings on radio.
Yeah. And I know the current lineup for this season in terms of the wild card round, you have Michael Kay, Todd Frazier, and Tim Kirkchin with Alden Gonzalez for the Astros Tigers. Yeah. You've got McDonough, Jess Mendoza, Ben McDonald, and Jeff Passan for the Orioles and Royals.
In fact, Sean McDonough and I just texted over the weekend.
Well, look at that. And then you've got...
What?
I know, I'm saying look at that. You can go text him about this.
Come on.
For Brewers and Mets, you have Sciambi, Glanville, and Jesse Rogers. And then Padres Braves is Ravitch, Cone, Eduardo Perez, and Buster Olney for that in terms of wild card broadcasters.
Sciambi is loved by a lot of people. And I don't know. I've been one of those who's always been rather neutral about him. It's like, it's always a matter of taste.
Yeah.
All right. But like he gets praised. Oh, he's this. It's like with who was it? The Ryan Rucco. I mean, like they'll get like heaps of praise on them, and I'll sit there and go, okay, good, but. Have I heard better? Probably. That's just me.
Okay. Well, regardless, that is the lineup right now. I would love to hear Benetti. I mean, he is one of the best, and his call for the end of the Tigers run was incredible. I know he's been getting heaps of praise. But
remember awesome. Too, the Tigers do make a lot of concessions to him.
Yeah. Because he gets to do it. He has a lot of broadcasting. I know, I believe the final two games, wasn't Kevin Keegler on them? Or am I being crazy? I thought he did a couple games towards the end of the season for them because Benetti had other national broadcasting responsibilities pop up.
Yeah. But that's, so they do make a lot of concessions to have him. Whether he'll do, but he could be on the Fox broadcast.
Could be.
I mean, that's when they get to the next round.
I don't believe they've announced them
because Ernie Johnson is not doing it. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, I know their current lineup of play-by-plays. You've got Joe Davis, Adam Amin, Benetti, Kenny Albert, Kevin Keegler, Jeff Levering. You've got a few other guys as well in there. So you could have Benetti in there for a game or two, which would be really fun.
Yep.
But
yeah,
I enjoy his calls.
So he's a great guy, by the way.
Awesome.
Benetti? Yeah, he's a great dude.
A1 dude. He came to Syracuse to visit because, of course, he went to Syracuse. So he came back, I think it was my freshman year or sophomore year, and I talked to him, and just like nicest person in the world.
Yep.
And he knew everyone's name in the room before we got there. None of us had name tags, and he knew everyone's name, which was like being told, hi, Kyle, I'm Jason. Like freaked out little 18, 19-year-old Kyle. Like, oh my God, this guy I listen to knows my name. Oh my God. So wanted to shout him out here because I love him. So, just wanted to get a little my heart on the line there. And I guess we got to talk about what happened in the NFL last night. I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't in the last few minutes of the show. To wrap up week 4, the Dolphins dropped a big fat L.
Look, they don't have their quarterback.
They don't have their quarterback, and it's tough.
They don't have their quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, because they don't have Ryan Thompson either. Like, what do you expect them to do?
I know.
But Mason Rudolph's quarterbacking Tennessee.
Will Levis gets benched.
And what did Rudolph do at the end of the year for the Steelers? He went out, and I'm not sure you call what Mason Rudolph does playing winning football, but Mason Rudolph is not playing losing football.
He is just not being a negative, which is kind of what you need in this case.
Yeah.
And then in the other game, the Lions 42, Seahawks 29.
Well, Goff didn't miss a pass.
Yeah. Goff was, 20 for 20, I believe, and he caught a touchdown pass, by the way. That happened.
Yeah.
I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown said it after the game. He's like, yeah, I'm actually the third-string quarterback behind him and Hendon Hooker. So if something happens, it's me.
Yeah.
So he's got a touchdown pass to his name now, which is pretty cool.
It was interesting because now under the category of who really cares, right? And this is under the category where Dan Campbell didn't give him a game ball, and he's like, he's like in the press conference, he goes, "Oh man."
He said it after. He's like, "Oh, he went 20 for 20. Oh, I messed that up.
He said, I messed that one up pretty good." He said, that's great.
I love that from Dan, and especially
but
after,
that's under the category of like, really, who cares?
Goff, I don't think cares. I presume he doesn't care, and if he did get a game ball from the game, I'm guessing he probably went and grabbed one himself, and he has one.
I mean, it's just one of those
whatevers.
It's like, yeah, who cares?
And have you heard all the Dan Campbell stuff going on with him having to move houses? Have you heard about this?
I did the story on the show.
You did the show? Oh, so it was Jason. You did it with them.
Yes.
I'm heartbroken.
Well, I mean, I had no choice, and of course, he was barely listening anyway. I had to explain to him who Pete Rose was,
because I hearing that happen, that it was a daughter's friend who like doxed their house. I really hope they're no longer friends. I assume they're no longer friends, but one has to hope.
I'm trying to remember. They ended up moving, and they bought a home that was formerly one of the Detroit Red Wings had. So,
yeah.
But this is what I talked about last week with this. If you ask yourself why famous people have their children in private schools, okay, over and over again. I don't care whether it's the Friends School or Sidwell Friends down in Washington for politicians. I don't care if it's private schools, right? Because in the public school system, right, what they're getting is that if the game doesn't go well, guess who hears it from the other kids?
Yeah.
They do. Okay, they do. Like, great. And it gets to be too much because they have nothing to do with what's going on except being, the children of the head coach, and or the children of the senator or the children of the president or vice president, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah,
that's why they put them in private schools, to get them out of that kind of system where you've got people that will. Young people. There are certain young people that are tough to deal with anyway. Okay, tough to deal with anyway. But at the same time, you've got that's why they do it, because the kids have nothing to do with what's going on. But the kids at school, they'll go after them. That's why they put them in private schools.
Yeah. All
right. So they had to move. Well, they had to move because of that. For goodness sakes, I remember one year there was a story in Denver about John Elway. They were going after John Elway. He wasn't performing to what they thought, right? And they then on Halloween went over and saw what the Elways were giving out for trick or treat for Halloween. And they criticized that.
Ridiculous.
But I'm saying, though, like, you sit there and go, what the heck?
I know. To wrap us up here on the show, MLB just put out some interesting stats for the season. MLB had its most stolen bases in 109 years.
The bases are bigger.
I know.
Come on.
I know.
It's just like, I pointed this out. I did point this out.
Yes.
When Ohtani did the 50 for 50, I said, look,
bases.
okay, I'm not taking away that much of an accomplishment, but I'm giving perspective.
Yes.
If it's 4 inches bigger, you're 4 inches closer to second base.
Yeah.
If it's 4 inches bigger on the other side, you're closer to getting to second base. All right.
So they put that out, and the more interesting one, I think, which is going to matter more to us, the average time of a 9-inning game was 2 hours and 36 minutes.
Yep.
The fastest since 1984 when it was 2:35. So game time has gotten to I think a pretty good level, a pretty good spot. This was like a pretty, like, if every game is 2.5 to 2 hours 45 minutes, no complaints from anybody. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and if anybody's asking, well, gee, why the Spikes games longer than that? Because of the walks.
Yeah,
that's the reason why. It's about walks.
Walks and just is a lot more.
No, walks more than anything else. Walks take longer. How many 3-2 pitches do you see all the time? It just there's a length to it.
Yeah.
More guys on base, more traffic, everything that goes with it. But yeah, I mean, getting the time of the games down, they had to do it. And the reason they had to do it was simple. They were starting, it's already tough enough to keep young people engaged in the 18 to 34 group, which is so coveted by so many people. And,
I'm wanted.
Right? And and that's the issue as to why they feel they have to do it. And they were right to do it. I mean, because soccer, MLS, for example, does not take long to play. It's 100 minutes?
It's 100. It's 90 minutes plus extra 10, 15.
Yeah, but I mean, and plus halftime is an hour and a half. You're done.
Yeah.
And young people love that. That's why it makes the football thing so intriguing. The football thing is so intriguing because those games are a little bit more than 3 hours and people are engaged. All right.
Yeah. So just some interesting stats and info as we wrap up the show today. And tomorrow we'll have some interviews. It'll be a very fun week here on the show.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with